Hey, everybody. Welcome to the JAYE and Thomas Podcast. This is episode 5, electric, as it were. So today, we're going to start off as we normally do. And Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Today it's great. Went into the big city and purchased 2 electric scooters. So we're our hands are not tied anymore. So we can go and go and go without waiting on the bus or taking a taxi. So
Well, that's pretty
pretty
convenient.
exciting stuff. Yeah.
Your new theme
No,
song is Electric 2 or whatever the heck it is, Electric Boogaloo or whatever.
here you don't have to have an operator license for an electric. You don't have to have a license plate, and you don't have to wear a helmet. Which I mean, I will. We brought helmets from the States, but you don't have to put a plate on and all that kind of stuff. So just carry your bill of sale with you, and $5 bill. Police will stop you, and you hand them the bill of sale and the $5 bill. If they don't see an exhaust pipe, they're like, "Oh, okay, well, go on."
No, that
They're
ain't too
checking
bad.
the bike. Yeah,
That
yeah.
ain't too
A
bad.
couple of friends here already have them, and they were giving us the lowdown on it. So
Nice.
easy way, inexpensive way to get around. And by the way, fuel here is or gas, unleaded gas is $1.99 a gallon. Diesel fuel is $1.74 a gallon. So there you go.
Does
Price
that
of fuel.
keep things cheap, I guess? But I mean, what's humorous is the unleaded being $1.99. The U.S. was at that point, 6 months, 12 months ago, or a year ago. So
That's up here from $1.50 a gallon.
oh,
It was
wow.
$1.49. Yeah. Probably 6 months ago, it was $1.49 on one of our visits. I checked it. But we just got a new president.
That's pretty
We talked
interesting.
in the past. We've talked about the presidential elections, and
Yeah.
he was sworn in Monday.
Okay.
Monday was a holiday. It was the Battle of Pichincha, which is the battle they had to free themselves from Spanish control and become a separate country governing on their own.
That's
So
pretty cool.
they were celebrating that battle, yeah. And so they inaugurated the new president that they just elected on Monday.
Wow.
Yep. 65-year-old businessman, former retired bank. He tried to get relationship good with. I don't know. The U.S. is out in kind of left field with no glove using a tide, so he's going to try to keep everything on track with them and the dollar and all that, the value and all that stuff. So should work out pretty well.
Oh, yeah, that's the hope, right?
Hopefully
So,
it will. Yeah, hopefully it will. You were asking about their governmental system.
right. What
And
does
the
that look
governmental
like?
system under the it's a democracy like the United States.
Well,
They
hold
have
up. No.
a
That,
party
that
system and they operate off a new constitution,
Right.
that's a representative democracy with 3 branches. Okay, they have a executive branch, legislative, and judicial.
Okay.
Okay. They have 24 provinces here, which are divided into administrative provinces or cantons. The president is over the executive and military branches. Okay.
Convenient.
Congress enforces the new constitution and multi-party elections. Now, that's when I say multi-party elections, each province has their own government. It's like counties and having a county mayor and things like that in a county or a city having a mayor and alderman or metro council people and stuff like that. The third branch is judicial, and they handle the administrative courts and trial courts and appellate courts. Each province has a superior court, which leads to a Supreme Court.
Okay.
Now they have 30 justices in the Supreme Court in 10 chambers. So there's 3 judges for each chamber, and they are given life terms. When they're elected, they're in for life.
So it's kind of like the Supreme Court a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of like that. their Congress is not the same. They don't have senators and congressmen and things like that. They're called, I don't know what they're called. They're different than ours, but it operates on kind of a democracy type deal. But it can flip to a dictatorship real quick if they needed to, I guess. But
I was going to say,
with him being over the military, that
I don't find
everybody
it
does
too
what he
very
says, or he just calls out the military.
right.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
So,
you said it's a democracy like the United States, but we are a democratic republic. We are not a democracy. That is not the case. Remember, we elect officials, which you very much do not like, which I understand, and some of them are very much not likable, probably most. But the United States is a democratic republic, and it was made that way, at least especially with the Senate and stuff like that, to try to equally represent the people, no matter how many states and whatnot. So just a quick point of clarification there, because when you say it's a democracy and there's no senators, I'm assuming there's no House of Representatives or anything like that, does that mean how do things happen inside of the government? Does the president just have a cabinet, or do judges just rule over their proverbial roost? Or
I believe they've got a cabinet that he brings in his own people.
Sure.
But what was very interesting about this guy is he signed into law. He signed into law that the people that are on the plane, when the presidential plane goes, only a certain amount of people can go.
Get off my plane.
Okay. And then there can be no gifts given to anybody, like lobbyists giving gifts to people in the cabinet. There's not going to be any extra people on the plane. There'll be no extra trips taken by people.
They put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing.
I mean, he's tightening down on this government corruption and stuff where they're just willy-nilly doing whatever they want to at the basic taxpayer expense. So there you go.
How does that work?
That's pretty cool. I mean,
well, of course, remember, we did hear from a certain orange man that he was going to drain the swamp, air quotes, and then the swamp really didn't get drained. So that leads me into another question, though, is if, let's say, third world country, how does a presidential candidate get the word out that it's a candidate, or how does even a president at that point get a candidacy spot for a primary? And if they have a multi-party system, when you say multiple parties, is there a Democratic Party, a Republican Party, a Green Party, independent?
I didn't look into it that deep, but I don't think they're broken down into parties like that.
Oh, okay.
They have social media here. They have newspapers. They have TV. They've got billboards just like everybody else, and advertisements, and then they have stuff that hang from their light poles in the city. And my understanding was that at the very first presidential election, there were 16 candidates. Kind of like in the States where I think there were 7 or 8 going for prez.
You had like a
down.
Yeah, you got a primary, right?
They had a runoff with the guys, the last 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like we talked about, everybody's required to vote. They went into that, between 18 and 65, you're required to vote.
Yeah.
So, and there's a fine. I was talking to a lady today, and she said there's a fine if you don't vote. And if you don't vote, it can affect your visa or can affect your status as a citizen.
Wow.
If you don't have a voter card where they've given you the card showing that you voted. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty intricate system where they keep up with everybody, but they make sure that everything is, kind of fair and square. And they want people to vote. I mean, and if you don't vote, they fine you. So.
That reminds me of the South Park episode of Vote or Die, where Stan, one of the main characters in the show, it's an 8-year-old, but they're voting on a school mascot, which is mildly humorous. and they were talking about voting between a douche and a turd sandwich, because of course the candidates that we are having more and more as we go are instead pick the best, it's pick the least worst. So that makes me chuckle, where the whole point of that episode was, it's within the Constitution of the United States, it's the very First Amendment, right? Is people don't, or they have free speech. Well, that works both ways, to say something or to keep their opinions and voice to themselves. Where in the Ecuadorian case, it sounds like it doesn't sound like a whole lot of freedom of speech there. It kind of sounds like, you are compelled to vote. Well, okay. And the point I'm making here is, if you have escalations, well, let's say, and much like, the Black Panthers back in the day, they were in voting or outside of voting places to make sure that you vote. And then there was a very strong implication that if you didn't vote for somebody else or vote for a particular candidate, and this happens with other organizations as well, not just the Black Panthers, but if you don't vote for, air quotes, our guy, well, then there's going to be a problem. So it sounds like the natural progression of let's have a system that mandates you do something, which kind of harkens back to the positive and negative rights scenario. Well, I shouldn't have to tell you jack squat, because if I don't believe that either candidate is good enough to get my vote, or I want to remain out of it for whatever good, arbitrary, bad, whatever reasons you have, that's one of the reasons why America is the place that it is, right? Because we can say basically whatever we need to in order to get our point across, or that might mean nothing at all. So that's very interesting, because what keeps somebody from saying, hey, you have to vote, and you go, okay, I want to vote for this guy. I think you need to, I'm going to need you to vote for the other person. Well, you said I had to vote. Well, okay. Well, now if they can control your basic will or actions to do something, why can't it go further?
Well, when I talked to the young lady, I said, well, how did you respond to going and having to vote? She said, I went to vote, and I checked the box that said neither.
Aha. So
said, excuse me, there was a you're not going to vote for either one. She goes, yes, I showed up, I did my civic duty, I voted for neither one. She said, so they can't penalize me because I expressed myself as a freedom of expression, and I didn't want either one of them. So I checked the box that said neither, and I said, God bless you. It's pretty sharp there. Never seen a box like that on the ballot. But,
yeah. Well, no, we have boxes. Or sorry, it's a box, but then there's a line drawn. Much like I have a good buddy who, every time, he may have been facetious, but I thought it was pretty hilarious. Every time that there's a general election, he checks other, and then it's a write-in name, and he always puts Jesus Christ. So,
Okay.
he is checking the proverbial neither as well in that case.
Right.
But that's at least a better scenario than, hey, you have to vote for one or the other. At least there's an extra, okay, we understand you don't like either one. It might potentially be between the best of the worst, if that makes sense, as opposed to the best of the brightest, who is actually the candidate, air quotes, for me or for the country. And, and even if you disagree on some sorts of things like that, at least they're the one who you lean into. So, but
right, makes sense.
That's
Makes sense.
That's good information, though, because I would have just thought, or I would have moved on saying, well, that's the silliest thing in the world, because there's going to be a compulsion to do something at the point of a gun, right? Remember, that is a huge thing when it comes to laws, is things that are enforced at the end of a gun, right? That's kind of the thing going right now that I hear all the time is, well, how are you going to enforce these laws? Well, by the end of a gun, like taxes in Ecuador, voting, right? Like they're going to penalize you. Well, let's say you don't pay the fine. Okay, well, your ass is going to jail. Okay, well, how do they enforce that, right? It's pretty interesting there, but
on the way down the highway, they're building a new toll booth on this highway.
Oh,
tolls
really?
Down here the toll's like $1. Okay. Well, they're not finished with the toll booth. I mean, we went right through it, but it's a nice new toll booth where you're going to have to pay $1 or 50 cents, whatever it is, to drive on this highway. Well, and the lady goes, yeah, and everybody here in the area is kind of mad about it, or upset about it. And I said, well, who do they think is going to pay for the road that they use?
Do they not have taxes?
They use this to access Playas, where I live, which is a coastal town, into Guayaquil, which is the big town with the international airport.
Right.
It's a 4-lane divided highway, like an interstate kind of deal. It's funny because it's called E40, like Interstate 40.
Yeah,
E40.
there you go.
Yeah, and it's got an interstate sign like the United States used too.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And
I've been on it. It's pretty cool.
About 70. Well, they've paved a lot of it since last time you were
really?
down here.
Cool.
They've put a lot of asphalt down, and it's smooth. And it's a smooth ride all the way into Guayaquil now. And but I mean, I don't know who they think's going to pay for it. It's the people that use it need to pay for it. Like in Kentucky when they had the toll booth up there on the McHatcher Parkway. They had the toll booth up there, and when they paid for the road, they took the toll booth down. So
okay, that makes a little bit more sense than just straight up toll booths. However, we have to understand too. Luckily, in these United States up here, you might have tolls, might not. I don't know of anyone in Tennessee. I just don't know of any toll roads. Where in Florida, there's toll roads everywhere, and it's hilarious because on our little overlords, they will actually have ways that take you specifically around toll roads, which to me that's just the funniest thing in the world, man. It'll just go whoop, and there you go. You snake right by them, which to me it kind of defeats the purpose of having the toll road. However, I think it's good for tourists who they're only going to use the road once or twice, maybe. Why not? Why not let the people go around, like around the bend, around the block, whatever? Because they have toll roads in Virginia, in Florida, random places along the East Coast, and to me, Tennesseans would lose their mind, man, if we had to do toll roads. Because we already have a decent sales tax, and we have some other, we have other kinds of taxes as well.
Right.
So to that end, is the toll road necessary, and or are they going to take it down in the end? Because oftentimes they'll put it up, it'll pay for the road. Well, then of course it pays for maintenance. Well, at that point, does that mean that Joe Blow isn't paying, or is Jorge or Jose or Maria or anybody not paying for the road with their taxes still? Does it just come out of the toll road? Is somebody going to try to make another road around somewhere else, or are they going to start to try to bypass things? I mean, I know it's just $1, but when you said that minimum wage is $400 a month, those trips can add up, especially if you're a taxi driver making that trip.
And the thing about it is, that's why I was explaining to the lady. I said, well, who do they think is going to pay for it? Well, she said, okay, let's just say that toll costs $1.
Yeah.
Well, right outside of Guayaquil going into the city, it's $1. So if you work in that city, you're paying $2 to go in and $2 to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's $4 a day, 5 days a week. Well, that's $80 a month.
That's
you're
almost
paying.
That's almost a fourth of your wages, man.
Yeah. So you're paying, $80 a month to drive on the roads. Well, and that was a good point that she brought up. So I was like, well, okay, that's why you're driving me. So let her drive us over there and then drive us back. And she's a translator also. So we was able to go in there and bang, and take care of our business.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And do what we needed to do. Yep.
how much, what was that whole experience? Not obviously paying for the scooters, but having her, the truck, and all that.
I gave her $30 for gas. Okay, because it's a 4-door. It's not a full size, but it's like a medium size pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't make like this model. She had a Chevy, call it a Chevy Love, but it's bigger than a Ford Ranger, but not as big as a Silverado kind of deal, or not as big as what do they call it? GMC makes a Canyon. It's not as small as a Canyon, but it's not as big as a Sierra, so to speak.
Okay.
Kind of in between.
Sure. Yeah.
I gave her $30 for gas to make sure that we could get back and forth, and then I gave her $100 for the time for the ride, because it's 87 kilometers from where.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's 97 kilometers because we live 10 miles outside of the city, so it was 97 kilometers out. Translate parking. And see, down here, they have people that walk the streets that watch your vehicles for you.
Oh,
Okay. and you give those guys money. And I asked the question, what if you don't give that guy any money? Well, don't come and park your car back in his section of the block again, because you might have something bad happen to it or something, or he might let somebody do something to it or something. And I'm like, really? And they're saying, they told me that's the way the people make a living. Got an orange vest on, fanny pack, he puts his money in. He's got a red like bandana that he's doing traffic with. I mean, and this guy can stop 3 lanes of traffic to let you pull out or let you park, or, oh yeah. These guys, they're controlling the traffic pattern down here, but that's the way the guy makes his living. And, you give him 50 cents or $1 for watching your car or truck or whatever. And we parked and walked up there. It was about a half a block, and then walked back.
Doesn't
Guys rode.
Doesn't that almost sound like extortion? A little bit.
I asked that question last time I was down here. We were on the second floor on a balcony, overlooking the street and the skate park.
You could see everything.
Lunch,
yeah.
And the guy's down there watching the car. And I asked the people I was with, I said, why do you give that guy money to watch the car when you can see the car right here? You never lose sight of it. Even going down the steps out to the car, you never lose sight of the car. And they said, well, if you don't give him money, don't come back and park on this strip of the road again. And I was like, okay. I didn't question it. I'm not driving, so I didn't question it. So
well, that's
I'm not gonna worry about it.
Well, that sounds very much like our kind of last episode, or our last episode, where we kind of mentioned there's not a whole lot of control around, right?
Third world country. They're doing whatever they can do. And when you stop at a red light, you've seen it. You've been down here. Stop at a red light, you're inundated with people walking in between the cars selling things.
Yeah.
Limes, lemons, apples, candy, cookies, drinks, ice water, walking in between the cars when they're stopped at the red light.
Well, now those are my favorite folks, are the people who have like the water bottle in your hand. They're doing it ice cold. They have to start them frozen at the beginning of the day. They have to, because they're almost blocks of ice when you get them at like noon. But those are my favorite amigos down there.
Like I said, everybody down here is doing something to make a living, because nobody's going to give them anything free. So they've got to do whatever they got to do.
Okay.
So I asked today when we were at the toll booth. At the toll booth, it's almost out of control with them when you're in line to pay the toll at the one that was working and collecting. They're in between the cars and in line trying to sell you stuff while you're in line, because you got your window down. Of course, you got all the windows down most of the time, because it's nice down here, and they're all coming down trying to sell you stuff. Well, the one guy walked by and he had all kind of electronics connectors, headphones, USB cords, car chargers.
That's pretty smart.
And I asked the lady that was with us, I said, where does he get all that stuff? Colombia.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. For cheap, and bring it here and sell it. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Pretty interesting.
It every day is. Every day is interesting.
It sounds like it. Well, so speaking of Colombia, that kind of leads us into our next point of I don't want to say contention. However, we are talking about, or you sent me something that says Homeland Security says that the border is closed. Helicopter footage still shows people crossing. Now, what I saw was something online that said, is the border, so the border closure was extended. Okay, that's technically what's happening here. So you have border crossings that are closed except for very specific things, okay? And then some of the things that you can come by for is like active military, is doing international business. That was a big one. There were a few other ones saying, Americans coming back from not a trip, but if they were traveling abroad and then they needed to come back because they were out before the closure happened, basically. And there are a few others out there that are kind of specific. One of the things here is, I'm assuming what you're talking about is whatever helicopter footage you found, is it seems that they're taking in more, air quotes, immigrants. I'm assuming is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, so
Well, the moron that's over Homeland Security under the Biden administration, Slow Joe, and he said the border's closed.
well, the
Don't
border
come,
the
the border's
border
closed.
is
We've
closed
closed the
to certain things, but yeah, I know what you mean.
And
where
then the
immigrants
helicopter
aren't.
footage shows people are seeing more. The border's closed.
Mm. Where was the?
So I don't get it.
Well,
Did you look up the article that I sent you about them flying those people into Tennessee, into the Chattanooga airport in the middle of the night and putting them on buses? And God knows where they were going after they got on the buses. Did you look that up?
I didn't look up the actual article. I don't recall. Did you send me a link to it, or?
The White House, no, I don't remember. The White House called Governor Lee and Tennessee and said, we need to send some immigrants to your state. And he said, no, we don't want them coming here. So to the Chattanooga airport, they were caught in the middle of the night on camera, because you said the camera's always running.
It is.
On camera, unloading these immigrants with all matching backpacks, taking them off the planes and loading them onto buses, and God knows where the buses are going. And Chattanooga is close to Georgia, it's close to Alabama, close to South Carolina. There's no telling where those people went. Transport buses full of them, not school buses. Transport buses, loads of these people. After he said, we don't want them coming in here.
Well, you make a good point by saying
it's getting close to home. It's getting close to home.
Okay. What I was going to say is you make a good point by saying Chattanooga is very near or closer to other states, bordering states, right? So let's say they hopped on the bus, but Georgia or Alabama or South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia will take these folks. How do we know they didn't go across the border to those states? And they said they would take them.
And you fly them into Birmingham, Alabama, fly them into Atlanta, Georgia, fly them into Charlotte. You ain't got to fly them into Tennessee.
I don't know. It might be cheaper.
Under the cover of darkness. Under the cover of darkness. Yeah. There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes. The average person doesn't have any clue what's going on.
Well, that's true. And I think the same goes for us as well.
Wake up by 2022 and change some things.
Well, we'll definitely do our best to move forward with moving the country in the air quotes right direction, whatever direction that might be. That is something that we're having to deal with. But so with the Homeland Security saying the borders closed, I could see where it may be closed for several types of immigration at this point, especially from air quotes illegals, etc. People who are trying to seek amnesty or seek protection or stuff like that from other countries, I don't want to say we're obligated to take them, but it is the right thing to do. And one thing they did say in the article that I looked at talking about the border being closed is they're not going to not take an underage person. Okay, so, well, remember, underage, that's like all the way up to, 17, 18? So it could look like you just have droves of, air quotes, adults coming into places or people accompanying minors. And then, well, what do they get to do? Say you take me up to the border, of course, not now, because heaven forbid they just keep us out on principle. But, when we went down to Mexico to assist with mission work, that's something that I wasn't sure if it was covered under the, I think it actually was, if I remember correctly, but let's say something went wrong and then it's you and myself and they wouldn't let us across, but they would let me across. Well, you're just stuck there because you're obviously not going to go all the way back to wherever it is you were. And they're going to ship some people to somewhere. They might have to do it in a slow and somewhat orderly fashion. However, I don't know. They're just doing it, man. Like, they're going to keep coming across regardless. And that's whether or not you have the wall or whether or not you come either by land, air, or sea. I mean, there was something that said, what was it? I think it's called Adam Ruins Everything, which is mildly humorous. And he was talking about illegal immigration. And of course, this was a big hullabaloo when, the wall was supposed to be going up and we wanted to stop illegal immigration totally and everything. And they said that, at least in that, and I think it was debunked to a degree, but they said upwards of 30-40% of those kind of immigrants fly. They come into the country and then they're on their visas and they let their visas expire. They didn't walk over the border.
Sure, I'm sure.
So there are a ton of things that it seems as though, the border's closed and this, that, and the other, but people are always going to find a way around that system. Any system, right? Just all the time.
See, we're the hoops we're having to jump through to get a visa, and then to get a cedula. Once you get the visa, we're having to jump through hoops and have background checks, federal background checks, state background checks, the paperwork notarized, original birth certificate, and then you have to make sure that the notary is legitimate. I mean, the stuff we're having to go through, the paperwork and stuff just to get a visa to be able to stay here, it's incredible, the stuff you have to do. And then you got to pay a lawyer $500 or $600 to have him help you with it, and then have everything changed over into Spanish after you've gotten it done in the U.S. I mean, it's if we have to do it, I mean, that's what we have to do to get, the visa to be here. So,
well, I agree, and we talked about it last time a little bit too, where you thought it was necessary, and that's totally fine.
Why can't they do it?
I think one of the issues we're having is the folks coming over here. I'm going to say, now, let me jump out on a limb here. I don't think a majority of them are retired, have two incomes coming in naturally for whatever reason, and have adult children. I think a lot of the folks that are coming over to work, to air quotes, add value with their labor to that end. Now, we know what you're doing down there, which is a part of the income visa, which is great. And some would call it income, some would call it socialism because you're getting money that you're not working for. But it is what it is. But if you'll have to do that, well, they got to do something too, right? And maybe they are, or maybe they come in and they're just I don't know.
under your butts.
All right, sorry about that, folks. We had some technical difficulties, not unlike John Hammond in the first Jurassic Park. We were overrun with dinosaurs or third world country internet problems.
Exactly.
So we ended where talking about the border being closed, and then we had some, we had a little bit of thoughts on border closing, people crossing. We talked about Ecuador, the new president, and whatnot for a hot minute. So let's move on to our third topic here, which is sheepdogs. So why don't you explain a little bit about what sheepdogs are, or as they were explained to you, and then we'll kind of go back and forth on a little bit, seeing what do we think.
Okay. Well, the way it was explained to me is you have sheep, you have wolves, and then you have sheepdogs. And in America, the sheep or the sheeple, they just kind of go along. And the wolves are the ones that prey on the sheep. And the sheepdogs are people that actually sacrifice a part of their life or part of their family or whatever to take care of the sheep. A lot of that has to do with military or private security, or actually people that are taking care of the people that just go along. You know, some people just go along and everything is everything, as long as it doesn't upset their apple cart particularly. Yeah. So there just needs to be more sheepdogs in the world, which there are beginning to be. People are starting to come around and say, hey, wait a minute, you know, we're not going to stand for this. And so people are starting to take a stand and starting to look out for the sheep that won't look out for themselves.
Oh, okay.
So it's hard men and women doing hard things, you know, that most people can't or won't do. So it's a sacrifice,
right? To
be a sheepdog,
and that's fair to say to a degree. One of the things that I think was mentioned on this on the different podcasts that we heard sheepdogs on was it's a very rare ability to be trained to kill someone. Okay. So speaking about military and private security and things of that nature, it is something where the sacrifice, part of that sacrifice was a part of their soul. You know, that's something that I agree with wholeheartedly. Right. You know, you got to give up a piece of yourself if you're willing to take the life of somebody else. I mean, it's nothing like taking their freedom, nothing like taking their voice, nothing like taking, I mean, it's their life. It's over. All of their choices you've made for them, you know, in perpetuity. And that's pretty crazy. And to think that people have to go through the, what my buddy in the Army called desensitization. I know I'm butchering that, where they just got to become desensitized to everything. And they put you in a room and they have you watch, I mean, kids getting killed, people getting blown up. It have to make it something that it's the norm, or something that you will have to be able to deal with, because in the herding of sheep or the protecting of sheep, it's a scenario that you got to be willing to do that sort of thing. We gotta look at sheepdogs in this case, where sheepdogs not only protect, but they also herd to a degree. So them herding can kind of be, I don't want to say misleading or misrepresenting, but we have to also pay attention to if they can protect, but they can also herd, where will they herd the sheep into? Would it potentially be into the wolves? Would it be into somewhere that wasn't safe? Because we've all seen I'm sure since most of us out there, at least the people who are listening to this, you have internet. You've seen the photos or the videos of dogs herding, the sheep through the tiny gate and all that stuff. So we have to understand that it is a sacrifice, but it does come with a good amount of power.
Right. You're right.
And that power,
Sacrifice also in that.
Right. It is. Sacrificing is there, but they have a power that is not unlike the wolf. And in this instance, the line might be very blurred on some occasions when the sheepdogs may become the wolf. Not sure. And who determines what a sheepdog is versus what a wolf is? Because in the end, they're both eating meat.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
So,
good point.
And it's a scenario. There was a video on that other podcast where there was a gentleman who was assisting in what you would perceive was an arrest. Okay, and it was an arrest that you would see on the news because of the races of the people and because of the situation and whatnot. But one of the things that actually scared me about that was that older gentleman didn't have all of the information. Okay. And we know that there are bad people in this world. We know that there are also corrupt people with power in this world. Okay. So it's a little unnerving to see. It seems good on its surface, and if you look at it without any sort of, I want to say, critical thought, what the guy did seemed heroic. Got into the scuffle, got the guy, got the air quotes criminal into the car, and assisted the police officer. But what if this police officer was corrupt? And what if the air quotes, the criminal, was being unjustly taken? Or something to that effect. It's a weird line that's being drawn, because on one token, it might seem like the person's a hero. On the other, it might seem as though they're not. They're being a good little sheep and helping the sheepdog, but we don't know who the real bad guy is in the situation.
Okay. That makes sense.
So it seems interesting, but there is so much context that needs to be had there where, if one cop stops a guy, well, now that just seems foolish. Anyways, now I understand there's definitely short staffing on the force right now, which we all know why. But that situation just kind of seems pretty unnerving, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But my question to you is, are you a sheep or are you a sheepdog? Or are you a wolf?
I would hope I would be a sheepdog.
Why do you think
I would
is?
hope I would stand up and help other people and help the people that can't help themselves. That's what I would hope that I would do. If the time arose, I would try to help people that couldn't help themselves. Doing the right thing. So, and on that note, we talked about the president earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And they're in much larger police presence here in the city. We just came back from the big city. And it's just a huge police presence. Now, I don't know why, but even in the small town we live in, they've started doing the roadblocks since the new president got sworn in a presidential ceremony on Monday.
Yeah,
we've run across several checkpoints. I don't call them roadblocks. Checkpoints where they're checking your paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they don't usually check us because we're in a taxi cab and there's a local cab, so they don't usually bother the guy because they know he's got his stuff together or they're going to put him out of business. But I thought it's been interesting the last 48 hours, the 2 times that we've been out in the last couple of days. And we didn't see any for 2 months, any checkpoints at all for 2 months. Big city, little city, any cops anywhere. And now all of a sudden there just seems to be a land bash of them on the side of the road, pulling everybody over and checking their papers and stuff. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
That's pretty different.
Yeah. I don't know what the goal here is about that, but maybe they're trying to have everybody comply. They're all about compliance down here. So just do what you're supposed to do and, go down the road and mind your business. So,
hey, that's all we can
that's
try
what
and
we're
do.
hoping to be able to do.
Sure.
That's right.
Well, it's pretty interesting there. Talking about sheepdogs and what you would hopefully have done, but you talked about doing the right thing. How do we know what the right thing is?
We know right from wrong. We were raised to know right from wrong. And there's right and there's wrong. There's no in the middle. That's all a crock. It is black and white. There's no gray area in between right and wrong. There is. You're either doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And I'm not talking about in politics or religion or sexual orientation. I'm not talking about all that. I'm talking about people individually know right from wrong. They know right from wrong.
How do we know that they know that, though? Like, and in this case,
if they don't, it's going to be ugly for them. When we were growing up,
yeah,
we got to play with firecrackers, we got to play with knives, we got to play with toy guns and things like that. You know what happened to the dumb kids? They didn't make it. They didn't make it.
They didn't make
When we dropped a Coke bottle on the ground,
yeah,
it didn't bounce, it shattered.
Okay.
That's just how it is. People know right from wrong. They really do. In everyday life, you know better than to take Chinese lunch money. That's wrong. That's wrong. No, right from wrong.
So, I think it gets a little more
interesting, huh?
No, I think it gets a little more nuanced than that, because let's look at it from this perspective. What's right and wrong, as you mentioned, was taught to us by someone, right? It's a learned thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Should be.
Should be.
Should be.
Very possibly. Very possibly. So one of the things here is right from wrong. What if the person that we are, air quotes, learning from had a different opinion than we do of what right and wrong is? So they don't see things as black and white as we would, or they might have differing opinions on certain things, and it's a scenario where, does the person living in another country or somebody who is growing up with parents who we would perceive are, air quotes, bad, is, like, are what their kids doing is wrong because that's what they were taught?
I don't know. Does a 13-year-old kid need to be out at 2:00 in the morning? That's wrong. We know it. They know it.
So
I mean, that kind of stuff.
well,
It's common sense.
Virus to get in. So if you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense.
It's common sense. You can't dilute it. It's
listen,
common sense.
listen,
Doesn't matter
Fauci.
if their mom and dad didn't teach them right. Yeah.
It's
It
just
doesn't matter if
common
their mom and dad
sense.
didn't teach them right.
Okay, but
It's common sense.
it's
Yeah.
common sense. But
Come on, man.
come on, man. I've got no strings on me. Look,
Come on, man.
look. Right and wrong, though, in this context, is a perception that you have.
I'm not asking you to be a puppet. You're not supposed to have any strings. You're supposed to be individuals. We're all individuals.
Yes,
But there's honor and respect and right and wrong. There just is.
okay. But the problem with our situation here is that the right and the wrong from different perspectives might be completely different. And it could almost be total opposite.
correct.
In
You're
this,
correct.
okay, so in this case, how do we know and why are we getting uppity about folks who are, excuse me, air quotes, doing the wrong thing when it's just the thing that we wouldn't do?
'Cause I'm a sheepdog. I'm supposed to have to look out for them.
Okay, you're a sheepdog, but what if
arr.
the person, wants to not be protected by somebody who, and here's the thing, we talked about this a few episodes
They're not
ago.
going to make it.
Okay,
They're not going to make it.
they might, but they just might make it in a different environment, right? Because
Right.
not
You're right.
every place is filled with wolves. There always might be one or something to that effect, but we also have to look at it like this: the sheepdog has power too. Okay, and the sheepdog.
But evil is all around us. Evil is everywhere around us. Evil is.
And what is evil, Mr. Darden?
What do you consider evil? Answering a question with a question. Mr.
Wow.
Darden.
Okay. I was like, all right,
Yeah,
Grandpa.
How about that? Yeah, how about that? Flip it on you. How about that?
Well, the problem here is that when you're like, what is, you ask me a question, it sounds as though you don't have a good definition yourself, almost like, I forget who I'm misquoting here. It's like pornography. I'll know it when I see it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem there is if you try to explain that to somebody else and defend that position, you can't, because you'll just try to flip it back on them and then let them paint themselves into a box. The noun of evil is profound immorality or wickedness, especially when regarded as a supernatural force. So whatever immoral and wicked is. But see, morality or morals, they're not exactly defined in nature to a degree. Because a lot of these things, perfect example, the 10 Commandments, right? Respect your elders. Why? Or honor thy father and thy mother, if that makes sense. Or makes
Right,
it more
right.
appropriate.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Right. The
Me being
point
the dad.
here, well, exactly. The point being,
I am your father.
yeah, I'll cut in Luke. Luke, I am your father.
That's right.
And it is actually, he doesn't say that. He says, "No, I am your father." That's something we won't get
Okay.
into. But the whole point of this is, okay, what is evil? Well, I'll know it when I see it. The problem with that's not a way to function and to have a society that doesn't just go about browbeating people, stating, well, that over there, that's evil. Why? Morality has so many conundrums, it's insane. A perfect example is The Office has something that's talking about morality or hard moral questions and whatnot. Is, would you steal bread to feed your starving family? Right. Well, they're doing evil. They're stealing, but it's for the greater good.
Okay.
So getting off on that kind of weird tangent, the point being here is it seems like it's all about perception. And good and evil is it's almost in the eye of the beholder, right? There are certain things that we would just say this is evil or this isn't. Another example is like, let's say you are sheep dogging and you kill a wolf. Okay, so you kill somebody, but you're protecting somebody else. Well, did you really do the right thing? You took another person's life. You made all their choices for them in perpetuity.
Right. I understand where you're coming from.
So, well, you understand, but now
It doesn't mean I agree. I understand, but I don't. It doesn't make me agree. So
okay, well then, now you would tell me either why you don't agree, and that's perfectly acceptable. But why do you not agree?
Well, everybody has their own perception.
Right.
It's all about perception.
Okay.
So it's individual situations. You can't lump something like this into one big, grocery bag. It doesn't work that way.
Well, you just said
everyone's situation is evil. I mean, it's individual. So easy now.
A little
easy.
Freudian slip there, but that's exactly my point. You said people should know right from wrong, but then it comes down to individual situations. So your premise is flawed. Like, you can't put them in the grocery bag either.
Well, it's not. Individualism is, they know right from wrong. Every individual knows right from wrong. When I mean everybody's situation's different, everyone is different, and everyone knows right from wrong. So they will go in the grocery bag. They'll all go in the grocery bag.
Would you like paper or plastic?
Well, I would prefer the old brown paper bag, because then you can cut holes in it and put that over your head when you go to a Major League Baseball game, because they suck. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Ask me how I really feel. Go ahead.
No, it sounds like we're getting the full gist of it there.
Well, when they moved that All-Star game out of Atlanta, that was totally ridiculous. But we won't. That's a topic for another day.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, there's some really crazy stuff. Maybe we can talk about it next time with kowtowing to foreign powers. That'll be kind of interesting. But okay, so sheepdogs. I myself am thinking I'm gonna be a little sheep, and I'm gonna wear my little wool coat. And I'm going to be like everybody else, and then try to be an informed sheep. Or maybe I'll just be the wolf. Maybe
okay.
Maybe it's easier just being the wolf.
You can be some sheeple. Yeah, the sheeple, the sheep people.
So yeah, hey man, I'm all about the comforts and the technologies and the forward thinking stuff, where it's like eventually we'll all just be in our pods, like be in the goo, like in the Matrix, and then it'll just be super exciting. So I'll be herded right into my pod, as it were.
There you go.
So that's that's something where I'm putting myself in the sheep or the sheeple thing, because I haven't been presented, at least in some time, with an opportunity to be a sheepdog, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
I understand.
So in that case, I'm definitely not going to say I'm something that I'm not. I'd much rather just say, well, I'll bray like everybody else, and then we'll just huddle together in our little warm wool coats, and then move on. Well, mine will be a wool hat, like my little paperboy hat that I got. So
there you go.
Something like that. So the last thing that we have on here is no student loan forgiveness. Yeah, I think you had a question about that, or wanted to kind of bring it up.
Yeah, Slow Joe lied to you again. That's a common thing coming out of the White House, and nobody can tell the truth.
Sure.
He campaigned on, I'm going to, my first 100 days or whatever, I'm going to forgive $10,000 minimum of student loan for, student loan forgiveness. He campaigned on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out the other day out of the White House and said that they're not going to forgive any amount of student loans.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to they were going to try to slip it into the infrastructure lie that they're telling everybody, but they can't pull that off. So
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know how you felt about that, because it was something that would affect you.
So, no, yeah, I can see that. I did see where they did not put it in their budget for this fiscal year, which I understand. And I'm still kind of on the fence about, okay, would you make taxpayers fit that bill versus not? Would it have been something that would have been very helpful? Yes. Is it still something that a lot of us have to own? I think so, yes. So to that end, the reason somebody hit the proverbial ballot box or check the whatever box they were doing it for needed to be something where it wasn't based on a promise, or it wasn't based on something that you are potentially going to gain out of it, especially in the immediate future. It should have been something based on, moral character, based on strength of leadership. It should have been there are so many other things rather than nowadays when, that's one of the reasons I was looking at Andrew Yang at first, just because, and I'll admit, in 2016, I was a Bernie bro, because I just thought, hey, I want all my student loans forgiven, and that's what he's going on, which is hilariously silly in this case, because it would have been the second time that somebody campaigned on that promise and didn't come through, which, hey, I get it, and hey, it's a struggle, but it is what it is. So, and Andrew Yang had the UBI, where he wanted everybody to kind of have universal basic income, but it comes down to wait a minute, we're kind of falling into the same trap where it's just money all the time. And, inflation's going to go up, prices of things are going up, the housing market's just crazy right now. It's definitely, it's not a buyer's market, I guess, or maybe it is. I don't know enough about it. However, I do know that properties are ridiculously expensive, houses and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a seller's market.
Sellers
The
market.
sellers
Yeah,
are the ones making all the money.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, man.
Yeah.
It is intense.
It's out of control. It really is.
And it's something where one of my buddies just bought a 700 something square foot house for $200,000, which is insane, but it's in West Nashville. Well, he'll be able to sell that 2, 3, 4 years from now and get 400, and it'll just be
Wow.
cool. They're going to put some tall and skinnies on there. He'll sell it and then be done with it. And then he'll be like, well,
Right.
that was cool. And he'll clean his hands and then move into an even nicer place and then move on. So just
there you go.
craziness. Yeah, it'll be a scenario where I'll be asking him if he needs a roommate when he goes from the 2-bed 1-bath to the 5-bed 5-bath mansion.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Yeah, that's it. But
that's right.
So it was something that was I counting on it? No. Looking at it objectively and hoping for something are two different things. Was it something that would be very helpful? 100% for a lot of people. Whether or not it had been a true hardship, or if it's hey, people are on the home stretch, or whatever it would have been. Would it have been helpful? Yes. Would it have made some people mad? Yes. And would it have the objective winners and losers, right? Because in every decision that the government makes, there are oftentimes winners and losers.
Right.
And that says something about folks, where what do they think about that, and who do they think are the winners and the losers? I had an interesting conversation about that with somebody where they were on board with the student loans and things being forgiven, and they made that argument. Well, that lended itself to several other arguments where you just kind of point back to, well, there are winners and losers in everything. And then their argument shatters because at that point it's like, win some, lose some. Or some people are going to get screwed, but some people win. You kind of shrug, and it's like, well,
Right.
that's just kind of how it is. So kind of wild, but yeah, we'll see what happens. That executive order pen might strike down some things, so we'll definitely see.
Yeah, you never know because they're changing every day. So
Right.
you never know what they're going to do or what they're thinking or saying or lying about. So
well, and that's politics nowadays, man. You
Yes,
just don't
sir.
know. You really don't know. And any legislation that they pass through always is convoluted with a 500-page document of this, that, and the other. And, they snake in whatever they can, both sides. It's not just one or the other. So,
Oh yeah, it's people trying to pay back all the promises they made to the people that gave them money.
there you
Sure.
go. There you go.
Yeah,
So,
it's not hard to figure out.
yeah.
Been happening for decades. So
Yeah, that's about how it is. So, but with that being said, anything else we can throw on the proverbial docket there? You got anything else you want to talk about?
I'm good for right now. I'm
right.
just excited about these new electric scooters and trying to save the whale, that kind of stuff.
I can't wait to hear about. That's what we'll talk about next time. Is your first outing in the third world country on your cute little electric scooter? You need to send me a couple more pictures of them or you on it, and I'll put them up on here in our next episode.
Pat took a couple of pictures of me today on it without a shirt on, and I didn't have my sports bra on, so I doubt I'll be sending those pictures. Now, maybe something else, but
We don't want to break the internet or anyone's system, so go ahead.
that would be it would just explode. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's.
Well, they would call it obscene, probably. So.
Well, we would take you down for nudity unless you called yourself a lady and said you had anorexia. So,
Okay.
so that's where
Okay.
we'll end it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And if there's any topics you want us to talk about, please leave a comment below. My email should be floating around there somewhere as well. If you want to shoot us an email, or if you want to come onto the podcast and talk about something, please let us know. And then have a great rest of the day.
Get me, mother. I'm through.